Dr. Virginia Carraway-Stage. I'm an assistant professor of nutrition science at East Carolina University. This video is the first of 7 short presentations describing how to write a research manuscript for the first time. The first video, which is what you're watching now, will talk about getting started as well as some of the drafting and revising processes. In the middle components, so videos 2 through 6, I'll talk about each of the parts of a research manuscript and what goes in them, as well as some of the challenges to writing them. And in the last video, I'll talk a little bit about tips and resources for being successful. Now, the primary differences between writing a research manuscript and other forms of writing, such as a lay publication in a magazine, are primarily stylistic. A manuscript writing is very technical, and ultimately the goal of scientific writing is to present data or ideas with great detail so that the reader can then go evaluate the quality and the validity of the results and conclusions that you're drawing as a writer. Now, a research manuscript does present original research, and it is being typically prepared for submission to a peer-reviewed journal. And so that's where I'm going to focus the presentation series. Now, there are also other forms of technical writing, which some of the tips presented throughout these videos might be helpful for, such as grant proposals and literature reviews. You might also run across popular science articles, and these would all have different ways of approaching the writing, but in terms of the technical writing aspect, you would be using similar skill sets. Now, when you're writing a manuscript, you're reporting or disseminating findings from the research that you've completed. And through this process, you generally go through several phases, reviewing the literature. You'll specify your purpose, collect data, and analyze it. I'm assuming that you are here, that you are ready to report and evaluate your findings. The presentations, as I mentioned, are focusing on those research manuscripts. We will be looking primarily at technical writing in nutrition, and so I will focus more on nutrition research involving human subjects. Some of the content will be broad, so it can be applied in multiple venues, but some of the content might be specific to the field of nutrition. So if you're in a different field, I highly recommend that you compare and contrast the ideas presented here with what is expected or accepted in your field. We will be presenting this information from my perspective as a faculty member in nutrition science. I do teach our research methodology courses, and our students in those courses prepare research manuscripts as part of their primary assignment. And then I will also provide student perspectives. There'll be some nutrition science students that will provide some input, and I'll introduce those in a minute. The audience for these presentations are primarily students and faculty interested in beginning a research brief. So students that are writing it for the first time, or faculty that are helping students write a research manuscript for the first time. Now, as I mentioned, I will be presenting student perspectives as well. So Allender, Sammy, Cody, and Madison will pop up from time to time in these presentations to provide their opinion of how the process went for the first time for them.
When we actually got into writing the literature review, I'd never really taken a class on technical writing before. So that was probably the biggest struggle, and I think I struggled with that throughout the whole thing.
So this is an example of a video from Sammy talking about her struggles with technical writing as she moves through writing a research manuscript for the first time. Now, to get started on this presentation, let's talk a little bit about some of the things you want to consider before you even start trying to write a research manuscript. As Sammy would say,
the first one is obviously stay organized, because if you don't, you're going to be in a mess.
So it's vital that you get organized. Get everything that you've used throughout your research project, all your data, all the articles you pulled, get all of that together and get organized. So before you can start writing, you want to consider even organizing the literature, particularly that you've read that's relevant to your topic. This is going to be really important when you're beginning to construct your research manuscript in terms of the introduction, the discussion, and some of the other components of the paper. to have a good handle on what previous literature has said. You really want to understand that aspect of your, surrounding your research topic before you start writing a manuscript about it.
Read other literature. It's especially when you have something like an annotated bib due, it's very easy and very tempting to kind of cheat and just skim over it and just use the abstract to write your annotated bib, but actually read the literature because it will help you in the end when you're writing your discussion. Also, it will help you have an idea of how to write a paper because you can use those literatures as templates, and that's gonna help your writing overall.
So as Allender just talked about, make sure that you're taking this process seriously. Don't move through it lightly. It will make your job on the back end much easier because it will help you when you're actually constructing your manuscript. Consider writing an annotated bibliography. So Allender just sort of mentioned an annotated bibliography, and this is a step that you would want to do before you actually write a literature review, in that you're reading through the articles and sort of summarizing the findings. This can really help get your ideas organized. It can help with the construction of an actual literature review, which would help with your research brief later on.
Organization on the front end really helped me out because my annotated bib was like perfect when I was writing them out. So I could literally take pieces from my annotated bib and then write fillers in between, and then I had my literature review.
So finally, take time to actually create outlines. Create outlines for your full paper as well as for individual sections of your paper. This is one of the best strategies for getting your thoughts organized. You want to do an outline before you begin constructing the full paper, and then before you begin each section within the paper itself. And throughout the presentations in this series, I do give you some ideas for each section on what an outline might look like. It does vary based on your research, but there are some general structures that you can follow. Group these ideas into those sections as I mentioned, so introduction, methods, results, and discussion. But understand that this can really be one of the most effective methods for actually communicating your ideas and exchanging thoughts as you move through the writing process. It's really helpful when you're trying to get feedback from colleagues. And getting feedback is one of the really important things you want to do early in the stages of the drafting process as well as throughout the writing process. So I want to talk for the last few minutes of this presentation about actually drafting and revising your work. You want to make sure that you're taking advantage of drafting in all phases of the writing process. Talk with others to help you think through your ideas and organize your thoughts. It can really save you a lot of time and unnecessary writing by going through this process. So start first with actually working through feedback. Talk with others about your ideas, your thoughts, and then move forward.
Nice to have different perspectives,
Right.
and because that way, I mean, you know, if you read it so many times, you are used to what you're reading and don't pick up on things as much.
Now, while you're going through this process, it's also important not to succumb to the temptation of editing that initial draft and revising process. Don't worry so much whether or not it's the best word to use or the phrase. Don't stop to really edit your sentence structure. That's going to make it difficult for you to get your ideas down on paper. You really just want to focus on that, getting your ideas on paper. Leave the revisions for later in the process. Paul Sylvia talked about how revising while you generate text is like drinking decaffeinated coffee early in the morning. It might be a good idea, but it's not really the best time to do it. Finally, understand that the writing process is not linear. You're going to start with a draft, you're going to get feedback, you're going to go in and revise, and that process is going to start over again. So understand that that's part of the process. It's normal. Writing is messy, and that's okay. Going through this process is what makes us better writers, and it makes our products better. So our manuscript is going to be much stronger in the end.
the revising, that's what probably helped the best because we could get feedback and be able to fix it from there.
So the last thing I want to mention real quick is about writer's block. We've all experienced some form of writer's block. However, some researchers feel that writer's block is sort of a logical fallacy for a scientist. Calastanova talks about how it's just an excuse to procrastinate. Think about it. When you're writing a research manuscript for the first time, you actually already have a lot of information about your project. This is not like creative writing where everything that you're producing on the paper comes out of your head. With research manuscripts, you really already have all of that information in front of you. So if you're experiencing a little bit of writer's block, start with the methods section because you already have the details surrounding how you collected your data. You likely already have all your results, and you may even have your results displayed in figures or tables. So all you really need to do is think about the puzzle pieces that make up your paper and start pulling them together into that comprehensive paper. Now the next several videos as part of this series, I'll be talking about the individual sections of a research manuscript and what goes in them, some of the challenges you might encounter.